So they were playing audio of these screaming rabbits.
Yep.
Was there something sleep
Sleep
deprivation?
deprivation was, I think, a
Right.
huge priority. That was, and of course, that was one of the believed solutions through the negotiations that were playing out. That they started like overriding the hostage negotiators who were actually acting in good faith, and then you would have, I believe two attorneys were even allowed entry to the house,
Hmm.
and when they examined the evidence, they told the group that they had a strong case against the state.
Wow.
And yeah, and so the siege wearing on, obviously you have these two factions who were opposing each other at the time. One believing that they could solve this with good faith negotiations, and the other believing we need to implement, force is the only solution. We have to implement these aggressive techniques. And they started by using the sleep deprivation, which was all night broadcasts of audio recordings playing the screams of rabbits being slaughtered and Buddhist
Gosh.
chanting, which I found strange.
At the same time,
But
I wonder if it's like if they're pumping both those sounds at the same time. That's insane. I mean, either one is insane, but then mixing those, that's some
mhm,
major CIA wet dream stuff right there.
true. Exactly. And you consider the fact that when they were allegedly in good faith negotiations to begin with, they had negotiated a shipment of milk for the children, which
Hmm.
was still in the house. But it was in the house when the FBI quickly cut the phone lines to shut off all water and power to the house. And that was due to the fact that they believed that David actually speaking to local, news media would actually kind of create some sort of sympathy for the Branch Davidians, and they refused to allow that to take place. And so
Wow.
they instantly that's the pretext they used to cut off all electric and power
Man.
to the house. And that was just after they had negotiated this shipment of milk to the children, which was still in the house when they shut off the power,
Wow.
which caused that very same milk to spoil. And so these are the mind games that are playing out, as far as serving to the negotiators' point of undercutting their ability to act in good faith, which is obviously what happened. And then you have the negotiators, they had managed to facilitate the release of 19 children,
Hmm.
along with a number of old women as well, these elderly women who had
Hmm.
immediately been separated from the children. And then they were charged with conspiracy to murder government agents and placed into 5-point chains and jumpsuits. I found this
Wow.
crazy. You
The
can look
women?
at the pictures. They trot them out to show them off to the Branch Davidians who are still in the compound. And the feds proceeded to force these women to stand out in front of the Davidians' home, calling for them to come out.
Wow.
And I mean,
Wow.
they sent a video camera into the house, the FBI did. I think that was in the first week. And that was supposed to show that there were no hostages and that people were staying inside on their own free will. And so the group, that is that infamous videotape of Koresh and the remaining victims before they all perished, obviously. But so yeah, the video
That's
it,
the
it
one with the little
includes,
girl saying, "Please don't kill us," right?
yeah, please don't
Yeah.
kill us. Yeah, man.
Hmm.
Yeah, my God.
What a
And
nightmare.
And yeah, it really like it. Rewatched some of that the other day before we did our Waco episode, Jose, and yeah, it tugs at your heartstrings, my brother. There's a
Yeah.
reason this was a red pill for me,
Yeah. It's hard to
you
believe
know?
it happened here, you know? It looks like something you're, oh, that doesn't happen here. I'm like, that is exactly what happens here. You know, no one's
Yeah.
safe and they'll find any way to destroy you if you go against, them. It's really terrifying. So then the fire, that's the big question. What happens? Everyone's seen do we have the image of that? Is that even possible? Like the fire is a crazy image of this place. So I'm pulling it up right now for people to see who just haven't seen it. So this is the complex, and the fire broke out. So can you guys walk us through like what caused this now?
I
Do
mean, they
we
kind of
know?
made the
Man,
perfect little chimney here and then blew it up. But Austin, I'll pass it up
like a
to you.
potbelly stove is what they claimed was
Shoot,
essentially how it was staged.
my
Yeah, that it
goodness.
was just ready and waiting for a spark. That
Wow.
was how it was described. But I mean, by the way, it's very important to realize the fact that David and the group repeatedly denied the fact that they had any plan for mass suicide.
Hmm.
But that didn't stop the FBI from making a public claim that the group might commit mass suicide, like what had happened in 1978 at Jonestown.
Right. Right.
Which, if you know what happened to Jonestown, that ain't no mass suicide. And
Right.
these allegedly, obviously these doomsday cults. Yeah, we should take a second look, as far as I'm concerned. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so David Koresh makes a final statement to the world, and that's when he released that through his attorney. He released a letter talking about writing this final interpretation of the seven seals, and that's when he promised that he and the group would actually exit the compound upon its completion. But anyway, within the FBI, they're growing more and more frustrated, and the 51-day siege comes to obviously an end early in the morning on April 19th, after the FBI hostage rescue team had their recommendations to mount a full tactical assault on the compound approved by Attorney General Janet Reno.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, Reno, she told Bill Clinton at the time that the FBI hostage rescue team was tired of waiting and that the standoff was costing over $1 million per week. She also cited false claims made by the hostage rescue team that child sexual abuse and mass suicide were imminent, although the HRT would later officially deny making that claim. But, I think Janet Reno herself even later on made the statement that she was willing, if she didn't receive some sort of support. I forgot what the context was, but she made the claim that she was willing to blow the lid off of what truly happened at Waco. And I found that very interesting, especially considering the Wiltshire report that I discovered recently, but and the intelligence aspect of many of those claims. But anyway, but of course, shortly before the Waco showdown, right, you have the International Chemical Weapons Convention Treaty, which Jim Bovard from the Libertarian Institute, he pointed this out. I found it very important to consider as well, because this is kind of the loophole that government agents will exploit to their own benefit, and also to kind of gain the ability to use these these military weapons of war domestically, obviously, is what's truly happening on their own
Yep.
citizens. And so that's how these government officials, they signed an International Chemical Weapons Convention Treaty, which pledged to never use nerve agents, mustard gas, or other compounds, including tear gas, against enemy soldiers. But there was a loophole permitting governments, as far as within the treaty, permitting governments to gas their own people. And so, April 19th, 93, that is when the FBI pumped CS gas and methyl chloride, a potentially lethal flammable combination, into the Davidians' residence for 6 hours, disregarding explicit warnings that CS gas should not be used indoors. All of that played out perfectly in terms of the context of Patty Hearst and the huge major shootout between the SLA and the LAPD in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
What happened to that house? It went up in flames, dude. It went up basically the same exact way that the Waco house
Right.
goes, or the
Oh
Waco
yeah. I never
compound
thought of
goes
those
up.
two together. Huh.
And they utilized the same exact strategy. So that strategic outcome was already on the record as
And
being
it's worth mentioning too, just a quick aside with the Patty Hearst SLA thing. Obviously, that's a huge, huge rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
take my word for it, it was one of the most glowiest things you ever did see. Like pretty much, it was basically a made-up little militia by a bunch of glowies that it was mostly kind of seemed made up. It's from looking from the inside out, kind of like a very much screams of an intel operation, and this was during a peak Operation Chaos. So this is
Yeah.
Colonel Westbrook was like pretty much confirmed, was like directing these
Phoenix.
people. So it was a
Yep.
Phoenix program
a
asset.
Phoenix,
So,
yeah.
Patty
and a
Hearst.
Green Beret that likely may have been one of the Green. I believe he was just 2 years prior training in the same grounds as Jonestown. So because that was a CIA, it was like a government land before then, and then they sold it off to the Jonestown people.
Angolan rebels were being trained by the CIA in this CIA black site, which became the People's Temple Agricultural Project in the jungle of Guyana.
I
which
mean,
is so
yeah,
absolutely
we
Just
were
literally training
also
Green Berets there.
we were also funding Pol Pot, under Carter. We were sending
Right.
lots of money to Pol Pot. Oh yeah, Patty Hearst. I was going to say she she lived across the river from where I grew up. Never saw her in my life, but allegedly she lived with like her security guard. Because she was just keep falling in love with whoever was watching after her.
Hey,
Very strange
they set
story.
up a pipeline. That same Phoenix operative comes back. He's called back for domestic operations for chaos, basically for
Hmm.
the hyper operational Operation Chaos that was
Yep.
playing out at the time. And what do? They task him with setting up a pipeline at first of all, um, presenting himself as a legitimate he's posing as an actual professor at UC Berkeley, setting up a pipeline to Vacaville, right? The institution in California that housed none other than Charles Manson and was a huge part of the MK Ultra operation that was playing out, utilizing this institution to obviously as a test ground. And so
Yeah.
you had this pipeline set up by this Phoenix operative, Colston Westbrook, posing as a professor at UC Berkeley, who is then providing, this pipeline to the Vacaville institution, which is conducting these MK Ultra experiments. Well, none other than Patty Hearst is caught up in the pipeline and was visiting Donald Cinque DeFries at the Vacaville institution where he was receiving his MK Ultra, yeah, yeah, as far as just
They want
how they were
you
kind of manipulating his mind.
they want you to
And
sound crazy and look crazy
yep,
making these connections, but these connections are very important. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't believe in coincidences at all. Like, I think a lot of this stuff is, people will be like, well, you don't believe the government's, they can't do anything. I'm like, that's the government we know about. That is dumb.
yeah,
This is ignorant, dumb government. There is a thing much deeper, much more nefarious, very sinister happening behind the curtain that's doing a lot of this stuff, that's got like this widespread network of evil. That's like what we're talking about. It's very separate from the government that we're criticizing as being inept.
I think it's key to
absolutely.
recall or to remember when it comes to government, or understand, I guess,
Mhm.
when it comes to the government. My show started as more like libertarian theory and the like, so I
Right,
definitely have come to the conclusion that, hey, this thing's evil, this is awful,
right.
blah blah blah. It's like a whole other level. But I also did work, as active duty military for like over a decade, so like I saw it from the inside how inept the government is. So like
Hmm.
there's libertarian theory of like how inept, and you're like, oh, the government doesn't work, it's inefficient, blah blah, and that is true. But there's a dark inverse of this, in that like for intelligent, evil people, or I guess maybe not even evil might not be the right word, because sometimes there may not even be evil motivations depending on what we're talking about. But I do think the incentives do drive it that way, that there are going to be people who learn how to utilize such an inept system to their benefit.
100%.
Because with such a benefit, if you are with such an inept system, if you are an intelligent person willing to play the silly bureaucratic games,
Mm.
you can actually go quite far. It doesn't breed competent people. But if you come to the table with this sort of entity with competency in place
Mm.
and a certain agenda, you can make things happen.
Right. So you're like in that sense, the incompetence is the veil that some of these more
Yes.
sinister actors use.
Mhm.
That's insane. Before we move on from Waco, did we miss anything you want to touch on before we go on to
Yeah,
another topic?
I mean, I really think that obviously it's important to understand that what essentially happened as far as just the fire development analysis provided by this report to the Deputy Attorney General, that it's just important that people understand kind of how this did play out with the Abrams tanks, and 20% of the building
Crazy.
being essentially just collapsing atop its residence as well, right? Which is essentially what happened. Because, by the way, the FBI loudspeakers all the while were endlessly broadcasting, "This is not an assault," as they
Right.
committed the final assault on the Davidian compound,
What the
which
hell?
is just amazing. Because, of course,
Diabolical.
like you consider the gas attack, there was of course, the uh, the use of the gas and the way it was injected by the FBI. There was a chemistry professor who testified to Congress in '95, and he said that the FBI gas attack probably suffocated the children early on and may have converted their poorly ventilated bunker into an area similar to one of the gas chambers used by the Nazis at Auschwitz. So
Sheesh.
that was
Insane.
actually said within the context of the congressional testimony. So,
And seeing as
but
how
yeah,
we hired lots of Nazis,
mm,
perhaps.
exactly. Yeah,
Perhaps.
and obviously you look into Paperclip and Gladio and the rat lines.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you start to question your reality a little bit
Oh
more.
yeah. Oh
People
yeah.
forget when it comes to Gladio that a key component there is that it was like they worked with neo Nazis like hand in hand, because a
Mm.
lot of these were a lot of people forget that like Nazism was kind of a big force that came into power in opposition to communism. So
Right.
Gladio, the whole concept behind it was, oh, we're going to prevent communism from spreading.
Right.
Who are your natural allies? They're going to be these neo-Nazi groups that are still kind of existing. And then it kind of makes sense too that it's not that crazy. Like, hey, you'd help out some of these Nazis escape and do this and do that. Curry some favor with your new group, you know?
Yep.
So
that's the opposite of us, you know, the Americans working with Stalin over Hitler, and we flipped that, you know, just a little bit afterwards. It's so crazy.
Well, someone in the chat, just to bring this up, someone said they could have just come out. It was only an assault because they fought back. And if the abuse of children was occurring, then the government needed to do something. What do you think about that?
Murder them all? I don't think that's really the sound.
But why didn't they
Like,
just come
I
out?
understand
speaks for
what-
itself.
Why was there such a fight?
I think that the way that it was described by the Davidians who witnessed the original assault, the feds fired first. No one actually revealed who they were. They were only in all black. All that you could see, the actual, you know, acknowledgement of the agency that they were representing is only on their backs. So all you see coming toward you are men in black, mercenaries. That's what you see. And so just imagine being the victim in the Davidian complex. Now, I don't know how else you would react upon federal agents driving up fully armed and assassinating your dogs in their kennel
We
right
should,
outside the front
Austin,
door. And
should we say also, I mean, because I got an answer to that question as well, but like the Davidians were being told by Koresh that the government was like the Satan, right?
oh, absolutely.
So like these people rolling up after being told by Koresh that you are literally being attacked by a satanic government, they've been like, you know, they're fully, they're
This
totally
was a
primed to
prophecy.
fight
Yeah,
what they
this
think
was
is the enemy.
100%.
And then my answer to that would be like, if Koresh is really hurting children, which he sounds like he was, then they should have got him all the times he was outside. There's definitely no reason to go hurt or kill all those people just to take care of Koresh, especially if he's outside constantly. Like I know that he went out into town a few times. I didn't even know about what you were saying, Austin, with the running by the flop house or whatever. So that would be like my thought there.
Do you think they knew that all those people were in there?
I think they had major
yeah.
intel, and there was
Well,
undercover.
undercover.
Rodriguez
Yeah.
was the undercover agent who had infiltrated the Davidian group was in there the morning of the raid.
Yeah.
He was talking to Koresh when
Could have arrested him
Koresh
then.
told him.
Right.
Yeah,
Could have arrested him then.
him right then.
Yeah, I think it was
And,
beyond them wanting to just take out Koresh. Like me personally, he's got to go because he's hurting children. You know,
Yeah,
I don't even want
fine.
the state to kill him though. Like I want to just throw him away, right? I don't think the state should have the right to kill anybody.
Yeah.
But they went about this in like a really crazy, like, I mean, Austin, you were referencing their ideas of wanting to experiment with psyops on these people. Like they had an opportunity here to do something way more sinister on a group of people. And it seems like they were more interested in the group of people, despite, you know, the epic flaws, the disgusting, depraved things that Koresh was doing.
Reminds us a little of Guyana, right, Austin? Like it reminds me of the White Knights. I was just thinking about that earlier about how they were
White Knight.
primed. He had this element of prophecy,
Yeah.
and the same idea as the White Knights with the Jonestown cult and how
Everyone
they
at the
were
pavilion.
preparing for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
100%, buddy.